still in another. Okay, good afternoon, good evening, or if anyone is in the same time zone that Dr. Sarel Gronum and I are in, good morning, and hello from Brisbane, Australia. It's lovely to be online with you this morning, and thank you so much for joining us for this session from the University of Queensland. My name is Laura Hassett. I'm the Senior Manager of the International Services team for the Faculty of Business, Economics and Law at the University of Queensland. And I'm joined online today by Dr. Sarel Gronum, who I will introduce you to in a few minutes. I thought I would take the opportunity just to introduce you to the university, but also a little bit about where we're actually located in Australia. So always good to put things into a little bit of context, and hopefully you've tuned in today because you know a little bit about Australia, or perhaps you are interested maybe in visiting us as a tourist destination or coming to study with us. And the University of Queensland is located in the beautiful city of Brisbane. We are the capital city of Queensland, and you can see that little map in front of you on the left-hand side. That shaded green area is the state of Queensland. And where Dr. Sarel and I are today is at our beautiful St. Lucia campus, which is only 7 kilometres away from the CBD area. Now, why on earth would you think about coming to study or to visit Australia? Well, in particular, Brisbane is actually the 3rd largest city in Australia. And I know that some of you are well aware of places like Sydney and Melbourne, but we're actually one of the fastest growing cities in the country. Certainly in the last couple of years with the pandemic, we've had even more people from interstate try and make their way up to Brisbane and live in Queensland. And you can see that we're an island, so we are bordered by a lot of water all around, and we are on the southeast coast. So well known for our wonderful beaches. You can see on the map there the Sunshine Coast, and we're not too far away from the Gold Coast, which we're really well known for. Now, Brisbane is what they call subtropical. It's only about 24 degrees today, but it's about 85% humidity, and we are now well into summer. We are known for our wonderful weather, usually about 300 days of sunshine a year, although it has been a little bit wet this week, so we've probably seen a little bit more rain than we're used to. But for those of you who don't know as well, and something that will put Brisbane on the map is that we're going to be the host of the Olympic and the Paralympic Games in 2032, which is something we're really excited about. There's a lot happening with infrastructure at the moment, and we're really gearing up for such a wonderful time in the next few years to be able to host those games. Now, on the screen in front of you, you can see as well this wonderful beach area. That's not the Gold Coast or the Sunshine Coast. That's actually here in Brisbane and is a man-made beach. And this was constructed on the World Expo site that we had in 1988, when I know probably a lot of you weren't born at that particular time. However, they made this wonderful area into a place where you can go to a beach type of thing. There's lots of restaurants and cinemas. So Brisbane really is known as a very multicultural destination, and Australia in general welcomes people from all over the world. And we would love for you to find your way over to Brisbane and Australia. And you can see as well, I've mentioned we're subtropical, so maximum temperatures, it does get a little bit warm in summer, but very mild winters, which is really lovely. Top of about 21 or 22 degrees, perfect weather, not much humidity, and definitely my favorite time of the year. Now, we are also known as a very livable city, and certainly we welcome a lot of international students from around the world, and we are certainly looking forward to moving out of the pandemic and welcoming a lot of our international students back to campus in 2022, which is very exciting. Now, great things about Brisbane, absolutely my favourite place in Australia. I am a little bit biased because I was born and raised here, but the University of Queensland, where I'm Zooming from today, and my academic colleague is also Zooming from today, is at our beautiful St Lucia campus. And we are located in Brisbane. We're actually at one of 3 different campuses that the University of Queensland has. And as I mentioned right at the beginning, I'm actually from the Faculty of Business, Economics and Law, and Dr. Sarel Gronum, who will be presenting to you, is from our business school. And the university has 6 different faculties. We cover a whole range of different programs and courses. And even if you're not really interested in business, economics or law, there is no doubt something that we have at the university that will interest you if you decide that you would love to come and have an experience at UQ. Now you can see on the screen in front of you as well, almost 55,000 students study programs at the University of Queensland. And that is really everything from anything from a foundation year program to an undergraduate degree to masters by coursework or research, or for those of you maybe that would love a career as a researcher, perhaps a PhD, or even for those of you thinking that you might not want to do an entire degree at the University of Queensland, maybe just 1 or 2 semesters as a study abroad or exchange student. And we would still love to have you over here with us. So just a few extra little stats on the screen there for you as well. Wonderful opportunities in terms of Brisbane as a destination and lifestyle place to be. But why do students choose the University of Queensland? For a lot of reasons, but I would say that most of them are looking at a global reputation with universities, and that might be something that you're considering as you decide that maybe you would like to study abroad. And I'm hoping you've tuned in because Australia is somewhere that you're a little bit fascinated with and you would like to learn a little bit more about what we do. But most of our global rankings, you'll find us in either the top 50 universities in the world or in the top 100. And if you'd like to go and check out any of those global rankings, the ones on the screen are a great place for you to start. Now, this is where Cyril and I are today. We're here at our beautiful St Lucia campus. It is a little bit like a mini city in itself, and most of the programs that the University of Queensland offer are housed here at the University of Queensland St Lucia campus. But I mentioned that we do have 2 other campuses where we do a range of other programs. And if you are keen to get a better sense of what we offer, I've got a little web link that you can check out as well. But you can see this campus in front of you. It's very large. I mentioned only 7 kilometres away from the actual CBD area of Brisbane, which you can see in the background. And we are bordered by the beautiful Brisbane River, which means that we have wonderful public transport like a CityCat, which is a network of ferries that go up and down the river, which is really quite wonderful and is something a little bit different that you find in Brisbane, as well as our buses and our trains as part of the public transport network. You can also see in the background there track and field facilities. Because of that really wonderful weather that we have, we do a lot of things outdoors. You can see swimming pools in the background as well. We have an Olympic-sized swimming pool as well as a second swimming pool as well, and running and walking tracks around the university, state-of-the-art gymnasium. There's even a cinema on campus. There's an art gallery and museum. So pretty much everything that you can want, you can find here at the St Lucia campus, and hopefully you'll make your way over and join us in the next few years. So I've alluded to a few of the areas that we do, but UQ is very comprehensive. We offer a lot of programs. We offer a lot of courses. I think last count, over 500 different programs and over 5,000 different courses, which is pretty special. So chances are we will have something of interest to you, depending on what your longer term career goals are. So on the screen in front of you are just some of our study areas. And as I mentioned, 6 different faculties and a wide range of schools offer all of these wonderful programs. And if you are interested in learning a little bit more, I would encourage you to head to our Future Students website, which is the little URL that you can see at the bottom of the screen, to give you a little bit more of an overview about the programs that we offer. And it would be a little bit remiss of me if I didn't do an extra special little plug for the programs in business, economics and law. And for those of you that are tuned in and really looking forward to Dr. Sarel's talk today around innovation and entrepreneurship, that's actually a field we do at both undergraduate and postgraduate level. For those of you that are looking at undergrad programs, you might be interested in our business management degree, but no matter what you're really interested in, I think you will find a program at the university that might appeal to you. So I would still encourage you to have a look on our website. And you can search for a wide range of those programs and courses through a very easy search tool and engine, and that's on our Future Students website. And you can default the information there so that it shows that it is for an international student audience. Now, before I hand over to Dr. Sarel for his talk this morning or this afternoon, wherever you might be, we would love you to, well, I would love you to scan that little QR code that's in front of you, subscribe to our email updates. Maybe you're interested in getting some program updates or being invited. We're doing a lot of online events at the moment, this being one of them that you've tuned into, but the university certainly has a lot of sessions that is running even now as we emerge out the other side of the pandemic, if I can say that, but we will be offering still a range of things online in 2022 and beyond. So please have a look at our website, and if you've got your mobile phone handy, please scan the little QR code in front of you. Okay, so that is certainly enough from me today. I'd now like to introduce you to Dr. Sarel Gronum. Cyril is a very passionate lecturer, consultant, and researcher. He has more than 20 years of international lecturing experience, and he currently lectures and supervises in innovation and entrepreneurship. He's also our Associate Director of Education at the University of Queensland Business School. He actively researches in the areas of firm growth and performance, specifically on innovation, network practices, and business model innovation. His research has been published in top-tier journals and presented at several conferences. Cyril has worked on a number of industry-sponsored large-scale research projects for government and industry. He consults extensively by empowering entrepreneurs, corporate and public sector client organisations to develop and implement innovative commercialisation and growth strategies, and also very much loved by the students that he teaches within the programs at the University of Queensland. So today, Sarel is going to discuss design thinking and how it delivers breakthrough innovations and not just design gymnastics. So Sarel, I'm happy to hand over to you, and I will stop sharing my screen. Enjoy the presentation.
Excellent. Thank you for that introduction, Laura. I believe everybody can see my screen and hear me all good.
Wonderful. Thanks, Cyril.
Thank you. Cheers. All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for those questions that are coming in. Please keep them coming. And I'm sure that the team are in the process of answering that. And I think Laura will also be assisting you with any inquiries that you have, especially in regards to the administrative and availability of programs. Now, as Laura have indicated, I'm a lecturer in innovation and entrepreneurship, and I'm passionate about helping businesses grow and helping students to actualize their dream of becoming entrepreneurs, intrapreneurs, and innovators within an organization. So today I'm going to have a quick chat to you about one of the tools that are often used in businesses called design thinking. Design thinking gave us things like the iPhone. It gave us things like the Tesla Model S, etc. So it's widely used, but also widely abused in practice. So I'm going to chat to you about what it is not, and what is really the secret sauce in design thinking that you can apply as an innovator at any level, be that corporate or academic, for whatever the your application is. All right, so that's the 4 things that I'm quickly going to have a look at. What is design thinking? What is it not? And what is the secret sauce of design thinking? And then I'm going to give you some examples of how design thinking has made the world a better place for all of us. All right, so let's get into that. What is design thinking? Well, first off, there's many different interpretations. When I get engineering students in my class, they think differently about design thinking. They think more in terms of lean process methodologies. When I get architectural students in my class, they think about ergonomics and making things look cool and user-friendly. When I get business students in the class, thank goodness, they know that design thinking is about innovation of meaning. And that is what I'm going to talk about a little bit today. But in essence, it's a method that you can fast iterate different solutions to complex problems and really potentially disrupt the existing offerings that are out there. It was popularized by IDEO. Now, IDEO was started by 2 brothers, David and Tom Kelly, and they were basically responsible, as I've indicated earlier, for the design of things like the mouse or the iPhone, etc. It's a design company, and they really popularized this. And over the last 2 decades, you see design thinking happening everywhere in all organizations. You see post-it notes up everywhere, and I'm sure that some of you in your schools have been exposed in some way to design thinking as a methodology. You know, where all the post-it notes is on all the notice boards around you, and they've got a lot of tricks and fads that they are running in executing design thinking. Why is it so popular? Well, McKinsey has shown in very recent research that companies who employ design thinking outperform on all industry benchmarks, especially on revenue as well as on return on investment, the competition who are not applying design thinking. So it's a process of continuously trying out and experimenting, but it's non-linear. So you don't start at one end and end at the other. It is non-linear, it's a loop, it's a constant loop that you are going through, and it goes through divergent thinking, which is broad thinking, and then emergent thinking, where you link things that doesn't intuitively belong to one another, then convergent thinking, and that is when you start narrowing down and focusing on 1 or 2 solutions. So it's diverse, it's cross-functional, so we always build in diversity in these dynamic teams. That's why I love to teach innovation at UQ, because we have students in our innovation and entrepreneurship classes coming from across the university, different faculties, psychologists, there's always a freaking lawyer involved as well, etc., etc. So that diversity really amplify the results, especially when we apply design thinking principles. In essence, it is human-centered. So it starts off by looking at humans and human needs and human behavior and the context in which we use things. It's built on empathy through ethnography. So I always tell my students, when you do design thinking properly, you are an ethnographist. So you are like a Martian landing on the earth and looking at these funny humans for the first time. You do not impart any of your own views on your subjects. You just look at them, what they do, how they do it, for what it is. And that's really important, because that gives you great insights that you haven't seen before. But in essence, it's meaning as a source of innovation. And I'm going to focus on that a little bit later. And that comes from Roberto Virganti, an Italian scholar, which did some great work on that on this topic. Right, so there's differences between design thinking and business thinking. In business thinking, all decision making needs to be rationalized. But we know that people are not rational beings. We think we are rational, but we're not. That's why all of these marketing gimmicks work very well. You drive 50 kilometers further to save 4 cents on a liter petrol because you've got a loyalty card from somebody. And that's not rational. Okay, so reality for human beings are socially constructed. Basically, what it means is your reality and my reality, or when we see the same thing, we may interpret them differently. We may have different feelings to different exposures or activities, but we are not the same because it's subjective perceptions of reality, because it's socially constructed. In business, traditional business thinking, we normally try to analyze and quantify everything. Whereas with design thinking, we don't just plan and quantify and study and then move over to doing. No, doing and planning becomes the same. So it's continuous experimentation, very similar to the lean startup methodology, where I always tell my students, fail often, fail fast, but fail cheap. So it's quick experimentations to validate, and you execute while you plan. So it's not about planning, but about doing, like the Nike slogan, just do it. Otherwise we sit and we are paralyzed and we plan and overanalyze everything. In traditional design, traditional strategy, we think about logic and use numbers. But in design, we talk about emotions. So the why people use things. And that's very important, especially with that anthropological underbuilt of design thinking. Then in terms of values, the overall aim in business thinking is, to control, to keep things stable, to try to predict the future. But in design, we don't try to predict the future. We make the future because we search for new things that haven't been before. We don't like things as they are. And we are great at dealing with uncertainty. And then lastly, business thinking is very abstract and particular, whereas design thinking is more iterative. We move from the abstract to the particular in making things real in the process. Right, so there's 4 different interpretations of design thinking that a study have shown that was done by, amongst others, Roberto Virganti, which I mentioned earlier. But what is interesting here is that most companies use sprints, design thinking sprints. Now, personally, I don't think design thinking sprints is a good idea. It's actually, as I call it, design gymnastics. I've been to so many sessions of large companies and smaller companies where they go through all of these design sprints that leads to absolutely nothing. The same with that creative problem solving sessions, because they end up with a lot of ideas, but they don't execute on them. Creative confidence, that's less used, more powerful, but one that I'm going to focus on today. And only 43% of companies that do apply design thinking say that they look at the innovation of meaning. And that is incredibly powerful. And that's what I want to leave with you today, is that design thinking is not about design sprints or gymnastics or a spaghetti challenge or whatever they do in class. No, it's about the innovation of meaning. Meaning as a source of innovation, as I've said earlier. Now, there's other models as well about design thinking. One that is often used is the Stanford Model. This is also the one that IDEO created. It starts off with having empathy. Then you define the problem only after having empathy and really doing an anthropological exploration into the meaning that different people attach to the problem. That you can define the problem, you then ideate, you prototype, and you test, and then you go back, empathize. So it's a loop. It doesn't start at one end. As I've said, it's a non-linear process. This is one that I really like, and this is from the British Design Council. This is where you start off with a challenge, you discover ideas, you define these ideas, you develop solutions, and you deliver those solutions. So again, it is moving from broad to narrow, broad to narrow. The only thing that they don't have here is that emergent part in the middle, but don't worry, I'm not going to bore you with that. This is what Gamestorming have, is they've got that exploring, emergent thinking in the middle. So if you can see there, these are diamonds, these are flat diamonds. So you have divergent thinking, emergent thinking, where you put all these funny, different ideas together, and then you narrow them down and you close and you become convergent to narrow it down to one or two ideas that you can work on. All right, so what is the myths? The biggest problem is that there's a difference between process and content. A lot of people think that the secret, and this is something that Steve Jobs also said, you know, people think that the secret is in the process, or as the American says, process, okay? All right, so it's not the process that is important. It's the content that is important. It's how you do it, not the process itself. All right, so that's incredibly important, because then you're going to end up with, as we said, these design gymnastics, okay? So the process or methodology is not that important. It's the content or the theoretical underpinning that is important, and that's what I'm going to look at today. So the first myth here is that design thinking is a magic bullet for innovation. It's not. It can help, but it can also damage, because it can lead you off the track and actually paralyze any movement. Design thinking always provides game-changing innovations. No, you can apply design thinking to solve internal problems and innovate internally on processes, services, not only products. Design thinking is about following a clear process and rules. No, you have to design your own design thinking rules and processes, whatever works best for you. It doesn't help to apply the same principles across the board, because it doesn't always apply to all contexts. And then design thinking is about following a clear, sorry, I've already spoken about that. And then, so the last myth is design thinking is great for creating shiny new products fast. No, it's hard work. If you do design thinking properly, a colleague of mine, which I often get in to do guest lectures, when she did a project for an aged care facility, they actually lived in that aged care facility for 6 months. And that's really how you dig deep into that anthropological exploration of meaning. So it's hard work. It's not a fast fix like they think, you know, in terms of these design sprints, which you know, going to create the next wearable electronic device in one day. It doesn't happen. So it's most suited to test desirability and less so for feasibility and viability. So it's really powerful in understanding, will people love this? Will it change the way they look at things? And then the last myth is everyone should do design thinking and workshops with colorful post-it notes and everything. Yeah, it helps, but it requires much more than that. So what I normally do with my client companies is I go in and I first train the employees, similar to what I'm doing now to you, in what design thinking really is before we apply the process. Because a lot of people walk in there blind. They don't understand what they're supposed to be doing. They don't understand the mechanics of the process, the underlying foundations thereof, and therefore it doesn't work. So ensure that your employees are firstly trained in using design thinking. All right, so the correct application of design thinking. Now, this is where Roberto Verganti comes in, and he said design is the innovation of meaning of products and services, the why people use things, rather than looking at functionality, performance, the looks, the what and the how. Design is all about making sense of things and human experiences. So looking at customer-driven innovation is not the same as design thinking. Asking your customers, how to improve your product can lead you into the wrong path. It normally only leads you to incremental innovations. You are the expert. You are the person who's supposed to know best in terms of what the solution should be. Don't ask your customers for solutions, because all they know is the existing solutions. And they'll just tell you, I want a seat warmer, or I want electric windows, or I want... all of these are incremental innovations. None of them would ask you for a hovercraft or whatever the case may be. And that's where you come in. So you need to break the paradigm of what consumers are currently, that bubble that they currently function in, okay? All right, so let me give you a quick snapshot of why I say this, all right? So this is incredibly important. There is two axes in this 2x2 figure, right? On the left axis, there's technology, and on the bottom axis, the horizontal axis, there's meaning, all right? So what happens if you talk to customers and ask them for solution is it's market pull right at the bottom here. It's user-centered. And all that's going to happen is incremental innovations. But if you look at how do I change radically the meaning, what people associate with an activity or a current solution or a current problem, if you radically change that meaning by using technology, that is the sweet spot at the top right-hand side. And this is when you change the complete market, when you really radically innovate, not only the technology, but also the meaning that people associate with that technology or solution. All right, Henry Ford famously said, if I had asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses, and I would never have come up with a car. Steve Jobs said, it is not the consumer's job to know what they want. Very important. All right, so firms that develop design-driven innovation step back from the users and take a much broader perspective. So what they do is they don't only look at the users, they also look at, as I've indicated, meaning from many different points of view, not only the users, but also the intermediaries, the producers, the decision makers, etc. And then also on the technology front, and this is where the diversity come in, we get people that have knowledge, not only in that anthropological aspects, but also in terms of technology. So we get IT specialists that have knowledge in AI and other applications, as well as engineers, electrical and otherwise. All right. There's three actions in this first phase that is incredibly important when you talk to many informants of meaning, and that is to listen, to interpret, and to address, to leverage that seductive power of the interpreters. All right. And it sounds very difficult, but it's actually not. It takes a lot of time and you have to embed yourself in that situation, but it is quite doable. All right. So let me give you examples. Okay. Let's think about this. I mean, most of you may not be aware of Nokia, given that you are all young, but Nokia were incredibly dominant. I mean, Nokia were the kings of the mobile phone market. They designed 20 different types of Nokias. You had the one that the bricklayer can kill a cow with, indestructible. And they had the funky ringtones for kids. But they had like 70 models, okay? They sewn up the complete market and they incrementally improved that. Then came Apple. All right. Now, Apple has never produced any phones. Apple is a computer company. They then produced a mini computer or a handheld computing device, which is what they called the iPhone. Now, the iPhone, when it came out, was made from glass. I mean, who's so stupid to make a phone from glass? It had only one color, which was black. I mean, come on. I mean, seriously? and you cannot personalize it. So Nokia looked at this and said, but these guys are crazy. It'll never take off because they don't know differentiation. They've got this one product made from glass, incredibly expensive. Nah, it's not going to work. But the thing is that they didn't realize is that Apple is not selling a phone. Apple is selling a computer. Remember that they changed the meaning that we associated with a mobile phone. But they didn't call it a computer because then the bridge will be too far, to cross, or the river will be too far to cross. They call it a phone to entice you to buy it, and then realizing, or not even realizing, that this is actually not a phone. This is a computer. It just have an app for a phone on it. And you only use that app about 7% of the time. 93% of the time you use other apps like Facebook, Instagram, whatever, rock your boat, emails, but it's a computer. So they changed the meaning without you even knowing that they've changed the meaning, because it's not a phone, although they call it a phone. Now, the issue is that Nokia was locked up in the solution space. They tried to create better and better phones, better and better solutions, where Apple stepped back and said, but what is the problem here that they're trying to solve? And the problem is a number of things. It's security. It is communication. It is connectivity, etc. And these are basic human needs. And the phone cannot provide you with all of that, but the iPhone can, because now it's your wallet. It's your communication device. It's everything to you. And that's why you see people glued to these devices on a daily basis. Another example of design thinking was the Vespa. I don't know whether you know Vespas. I love motorcycling. All right, but what happened in Italy after the Second World War was that they had huge shortages of iron, and they couldn't manufacture cars. So they had to come up with an idea of getting people mobile again with as little as possible materials. So they had to redesign a motorbike. But what they did at that time was they tried to sell a motorbike and it didn't sell, because the meaning that people associated with motorbikes at that time were men, rough, Hell's Angels, noisy, rebel. And they had to change the meaning that people associated with motorbikes. So they made the motorbike feminine. As you can see there, there's no pipe in the middle. You can ride it without pants on. You don't even see the engine, because the new meaning is, I don't care what engine it has. I don't care whether it runs on. I just need to know where you put the petrol in. That's all, and where you start it. It also had a little basket at the back. It had a spare wheel, etc., etc. So they changed the meaning completely from male, men, bikers, to women, everybody. Short trips, simplicity, enjoying, fun every day. And that's important, because then there was a huge uptake in these motorcycles and everybody was riding it, because they changed the meaning of what motorbikes is or are by just using simple technologies to attach to that. Okay, and this is another example. Let me quickly show you this example of how do you redesign the meaning that people associate with with staircases. So everybody's using the excavators, nobody's using the stairs. They use simple technologies to change the stairs into piano keys, and look at the result. The meaning of using the stairs have changed. It's no longer boring. This is freaking fun. Look at that. Dogs making music. excavator now. I'm using the stairs. The 66 old people use the stairs. All right, so this is a great example of how you use simple technologies to change the meaning that people associate with things, okay? This is another photo that I took. This one I took in, I think this was Japan, and this one was in Sydney a while ago. Now, this is design thinking not going that well, okay? So what happens here is when you flush the toilet, the clean water that fills up the cistern at the back there actually runs through this little pipe. So you flush the toilet and you can wash your hands. But what is the problem with this? The meaning that they changed there, yes, it's much more sustainable and everything, but people perceive toilets as yucky. All right, now all of a sudden I have to wash my hands in toilet water, you know, it just doesn't work. So this is really dumb design thinking. All that they needed to do was just change the plumbing, put that little wash basin on the side, and it could still have worked, but the association is now separated from the toilet. You follow? Okay, it could still be sustainable, but design thinking can be used differently. Uber, for example, what did they really innovate? Now, they didn't change taxis. It's still a taxi. But the only difference is, in the past, you got into a taxi at an airport and you thought, okay, how much is this guy going to rob me with today? Whereas with Uber, they changed that meaning. I know exactly before I get into that taxi how much I need to pay. I don't need to pay the taxi driver. It's already deducted from my account. So they took away that big pain that we had with taxis, knowing that we're going to be robbed, daylight robbery, if we get into them. This was one in South America, in Chile, Santiago, where Santander Bank, this was quite interesting because I walked past it and I saw that they still have a lot of retail space. Now, here in Australia and America and in Europe, most of the retail banks are closing down because everybody's doing banking online and it's cashless. So what they did was they changed their retail banks into communal spaces where business people, small business people and startups come together. There's meeting rooms. You can book an appointment with a bank official, and they increase their business incredibly by doing this. They even, collaborated with a coffee shop that operate from within those banks. So they changed the meaning that people associate with a bank space into a lovely place to meet and do business. All right, so that's one example. The UK, they've just started doing that as well. This is an example from my home country, South Africa. This is a small airline called Kalula.com. Now, they've really reimagined anything or everything in regards to low-cost flying. As you can see, the paint on the aeroplane, I mean, the big cheese, I mean, the pilot, okay, nose cone, co-captain, the front door, engine number one. I mean, everything is funny. At that time, most of the bookings years back, about 12 years ago, you did on the phone. Now, when you phone other airlines or you phone a telecoms company, they play this background music while you wait for 20 minutes, and it's like Japanese water torture. I mean, you just go off your rocker. Whereas these guys paid a stand-up comedian, and they played a tape of the stand-up comedian, and you just loved waiting online, you know, to talk. You didn't want to talk to the person on the sales consultant because you were laughing yourself to death of the jokes that this comedian was telling. So they changed the meaning even of holding the line while waiting. They changed the meaning of how you commute. They use smaller airports where you can just walk up. There's a coffee machine. You just walk up, you make yourself coffee. When your flight departs, you just walk down a ramp and you're in the plane. Everything they did, even the announcements on the plane were funny. So they really made it a fun experience. And I think that is part of their success. And they're still alive and going. In actual fact, the CEO of Kalula has taken over South African Airways. All right, so that is in a nutshell, ladies and gentlemen, what design thinking is not and what design thinking is. It is really anthropological explorations into meaning of things. And that is incredibly important to understand. And hopefully the examples have illustrated that to you today. And I am happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thanks, Cyril. That was wonderful. I know that I certainly learned a lot. I love the piano stairs. I think that what a fabulous idea. And some people are just so creative in everything that they come up with. So thank you very much. And hopefully the audience that have tuned in also found that really fascinating. My colleague Natalia, who's also on the line, we've answered a couple of questions. They were more general about the University of Queensland. But if anybody has a question that they'd like to ask Sarel, please don't be shy. You can pop it in the little chat box if you'd like to, or you can unmute yourself. There's only a few of us here in the room, so it's not a problem if you have any questions, or even if you have a little bit of feedback and you'd like to leave that in the chat box, that would also be appreciated. But we have some time for questions and answers, so please feel free to ask some.
All right, some questions that school kids that I've dealt with in the past have asked me, okay, so how do we apply design thinking in a school setting, for example? And you can think about any experience that you do not like at school. And then think about, how can I use technology to change the meaning that I associate with these things? Standing in queues, for example, or signing up, or whatever the case may be. But you can really revolutionize internal services and processes also by applying design thinking. And remember that the important part here is of not incrementally improving, but radically changing the meaning that people associate with an activity, from terrible to making it fun. And that's important, okay? So that's one area, that people also misunderstand. They think it's only for products, but it can also be for processes, internal processes, or also services that you apply. All right, so any questions? Phoebe, Ray, Stephanie, Jaden, Gianna, Ariel, Dorian.
You've dazzled them all, Cyril.
I think I have missed you. Yes, Laura.
I've got a question for you. So in terms of obviously listening to your customers, because I'm assuming that's how we think of a lot of things, and for entrepreneurs as well that want to be successful. And I'm assuming that for every successful entrepreneur out there, there's probably a lot more who maybe didn't quite make it. But if we've got some budding entrepreneurs and they want to come up with some new ideas, or how do you get started in that space as well? How did someone go from, having the mobile phone from Nokia into a personal computer, but calling it a phone, with Apple? How do you get those ideas as well?
Okay, Laura, so what we do is we've got a major in entrepreneurship undergraduate. We start off by first establishing an entrepreneurial mindset. And that's important. And it's not only, it's not supposed to entice you to become an entrepreneur. It's actually designed to put you off from entrepreneurship. So it's about showing you what an entrepreneur, what it means to be an entrepreneur, and asking yourself, does this really fit with me? Now, remember that entrepreneurship and innovation is different things. All of us are artists. All of us can innovate, but not all of us can turn that innovation into a commercial success, because that takes a lot of tenacity, holding on, fighting, dealing with adversity, resilience. And not everybody has that. And there's nothing wrong with that, but you've got to realize that. Now, taking an idea into a reality, first of all, what I find is if it is something that people are really passionate about. So the first thing is who you need to discover, who are you? What makes you tick? What makes you get up in the morning? What do you love to do? And normally the things we love to do are the things that we are good at. And the beauty of entrepreneurship is that it can give you the opportunity to do that. You don't have to sit in a 9-to-5 job stamping stuff or data entry for the rest of your life. That kills your soul. You can really flourish by actualizing what makes you tick. And that's the beauty of entrepreneurship. So that's the first thing. There's what we call first person opportunity fit. And that's why there's many avenues for entrepreneurship. And that is in starting an own business for money, but also social entrepreneurship, creating a social venture that is sustainable financially and otherwise, as well as being a corporate entrepreneur, meaning that you are a change maker within an organization. But the first thing is that really needs to fit with who you are and the team that you then build around that idea. So and I think that's the biggest secret. So yes, the idea is important, but it's more important that the idea fit the team, or the person. And number two, it's not the idea, but the exceptional execution of that idea that is important. Because you can, people think that they need to design a new iPhone. No, you can even open another freaking coffee shop if you wanted to. But if you do it in a way that changes the meaning and is really appealing to a specific niche in the market. Now, niche is a small segment that begs you for that solution. And that's the mistake that a lot of entrepreneurs also make, because they think about 20 million people. No. Think about 20 people, your first customers. Then think about 200 people. And then think about 2,000 people. But start with niches. All innovations start in niches, small segments in the market, and then move from there and break out from there. All right. So that's it in a nutshell. Any other questions?
They're all very quiet on the chat bot. They are.
Mackay, Noel, Olivia, you've been from the beginning. Phoebe, Ray. No questions whatsoever.
Oh, we've got one actually. There's one from Ariel that's come in. Thank you for the content,
Ariel.
Sarel. She's thinking about how she can translate design thinking to her role in her job and her business. She says, I consider myself an entrepreneur, and I love that you stress execution, and that's an area I see often fall short in her job, but she doesn't mention what her job actually is.
Okay. All right. So design thinking can be translated into any role. For example, in my role as a lecturer, when I get feedbacks from students, so our semester run from January to December. So yesterday I got feedback from my Master of Business students and from my MBA students. And a lot of them say, I talk too much. Okay. All right. So I need to have more interactivity, and I cover too many topics. Okay. And I listen to that, but I still know that I need them to grasp all of those theories. So I have to redesign my delivery to ensure that I still attain that objective, but in a design manner. So what I do then is I do experiments. So next semester, what I'll do is I'll do some more flipped classroom activities. Manufacture 1 or 2 videos, have them watch those videos before they come into class. Test if they've done so, because otherwise they won't do it. Test if they do and call them out, put pressure on them to actually do the pre-lecture preparation. And then I will build in more interactivity into the class. And that's how you do it. So through experimenting, okay, this worked really well. This didn't work, but I can tweak a little bit. Nah, this doesn't work. just drop it. But it's all through small experiments. And it's cheap failures. I mean, it wouldn't be disastrous to the outcomes of the overall course for the semester if I try 1 or 2 interventions. But the secret here is put yourself in the shoes of those that you are serving or that you are creating a product for. Know what they want and know their interpretation of what you are delivering. Don't think you know. And then also do not ask them, how should I make this service better? Because the question in our student survey is actually wrong. The question should be, why do you study this course? Why do you dislike this? Why do you like that? It's going beyond just I like or I dislike or I want this and I do not want that. Because when you get to the why people use things, you get to understanding the meaning that they associate with things. So I think that's a starting point, is experimenting and really having empathy. Talk to your clients. Ask them how these things make them feel, because that's design. How do you feel? Not how do you use it, when do you use it? How do that make you feel? Does it make you feel stupid if you're in this class and I call you out or whatever? So, okay, that's bad. That's a bad emotion. How do I change that? How do I build competency and self-efficacy, as an example?
That's great, Sarel. Ariel is a wardrobe coach. She empowers women to develop their own unique style and love their bodies, but she's also an account manager for a retail POS company. So hopefully she's
in terms of a wardrobe coach, there's so much that you can do there in terms of changing meaning. I mean, there's technologies, that earlier slide that I showed you, where you use radical technologies with radical change in meaning. And that's absolutely it in terms of technology, AI, scanning technology, being able to do a 3D scan of a person's body and then being able to tailor certain styles, being able to play on the computer with certain or different styles. So it changes the meaning that people associate with online shopping and online fitting or whatever the case may be. But there are a number of areas that you can innovate in that regard.
So
Dorian asked,
yep, you've got that one.
Is there a change management theory that is more conducive to design thinking? Well, change management and design thinking is actually not the same thing. So change management is more about managing people as they go through periods of change. So it's normally associated in strategic management when you have radical shifts in strategic direction, because we are all cart horses. People hate change. Evolution have actually hotwired us not to like change, because what is change? Change is uncertain. And when we were cave people, if you hit your toe, you can't hunt and you're going to die. So you don't walk in the dark because that is the unknown. So we don't like the unknown. We always gravitate. We say, oh, we love change. Nonsense. You genetically hardwired not to like change. And that's change management. But you are right. There are similarities, because design thinking is about changing the meaning that people associate. And that's also change. And you have to manage that change. And how we do that is, for example, on your iPhone, if you have a look on your iPhone screen, if you want a phone, the icon for the phone is still, okay, there we go, that little old phone. Nobody uses a phone that looks like that anymore. And that's how you manage change. That's how you herd the sheep. You keep with what is familiar in changing without even telling them that I am innovating the meaning, because they're not really interested. They just want not radical change. So yes, there are similarities there. All right. So Mekai asked a question. If I want to design a faster engine, do I focus on that or how to get more air into the engine? All right. Okay, mate. The problem is, Mekai, that the internal combustion engine has reached an engineering plateau. In the past, it cost a couple of thousand to get another horsepower, another 1 horsepower out of an engine. Now it costs hundreds of thousands of dollars to squeeze out another horsepower from that engine. And that tells us that the internal combustion engine that has been around for more than 100 years is actually outdated. It's ripe for disruption. And that's why we're going to see alternatives like electric, like hydrogen, like other modes, completely different engines. So I would say that if you want to make a faster internal combustion engine, it's not a good idea, mate. The internal combustion is on its way out. It's going to be something different or something completely different, like hovercrafts. There's a lot of innovation happening now in terms of drone hovercrafts, etc., etc. But the mode of transport of the future is not going to be an internal combustion. That I can promise you. So don't try to squeeze out like Volkswagen with their Bugatti Veyron. Don't try to squeeze out more horsepower from an internal combustion engine. Okay. Thanks, Dorian.
And just the last one there, Sarel, because I think we've got 1 more minute to go.
Yes. Okay. So Dorian asked, so design thinking would be better to change organization climate versus organizational culture. Well, it's actually both. Okay, so that's why I go into organizations and first train them in design thinking, and that helps to change the culture in the organization. And that cultural change and shift in thinking needs to happen for design thinking to work, because otherwise all that we're going to do is trying to make faster horses, incrementally innovate. And I see this with how many companies. They're successful, but they become one horse shows. They've only got this one product that they constantly incrementally innovate, and that's problematic. All right, but I think we are out of time. Listen, guys, it's been lovely spending time with you wherever you are across the world. I really hope to see you soon with this pandemic madness. But I think sanity will prevail in the next year and things will start open. I hope so, really. And also looking forward to visiting your parts of the world again. Thank you so much, Laura, Nat, and Leslie, for putting this together. Have an awesome evening. Our day, your tomorrow, has started. All of the best. Thank you. Cheers.
Thanks, Sarel. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you guys
Cheers.
so much.
Thanks, Leslie. Cheers.
Y'all take care.
You too, mate.